Why did Jesus refer to himself as the vine? What is the significance of this? I mean, was it to speak of his lowliness? I mean, does it speak of union? Does it refer to fruit bearing or fruitfulness? Does it illustrate dependence on Christ? Or maybe belonging to Christ? I mean, I think all of those are true to a certain extent, but there's much more important reasons, or a much more important reason why Jesus says he is the true vine. We need to understand that there was another vine, a defective vine, a corrupted vine, a fruitless vine. It was an empty vine. The other vine was Israel. And it was God's vine because in Isaiah 5, Israel was presented as a vine. God says, I planted my vine, my vineyard, in the very fertile hill. That chapter in Isaiah goes on to talk about what God did and all he gave Israel to bring forth fruit. God expected a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard the cries of violence. Israel was the vine. And this metaphor, it carried through the history of Israel. There's so much that pointed to Israel being God's vine. God's life flowed through that nation. But as we see in Isaiah 5 and other places like Psalm 80, we see the tragedy of Israel's defection as a vine. And I would encourage you to go read these chapters, but long story short, God planted Israel and then turned on Israel in judgment, all because of their disobedience and failure to keep him first. They became an idolatrous nation. Ezekiel said in his writings, Israel is an empty vine, it has no fruit. Isaiah said the vine of Israel produces a toxic and useless and inedible fruit. Israel was the blessed nation planted by God to bring forth his redemption plan. His life would flow through this nation, and all attached to him in this nation completely aborted mission and went their own way. And as we see in scripture, they were unfaithful, they were idolatrous, they were immoral, and God brought judgment. This is what the Old Testament lays out for us. And the disciples on this night, just like all other Jews, thought, hey, wait a minute, I'm Jewish. I'm connected to God. Israel, the people of God, the Jewish people, are the source of the blessing. I'm a Jew. I was born a Jew. I'm the seed of Abraham. I'm connected to God. I mean, this was their thought process, as was every other Jew in this day. And Jesus is here saying, not so. I gave you the chance, and you guys missed this. You missed this chance. You messed up this chance. Hence why I'm here to make all things new. And if you want to be connected to the Father, you must be connected to me. Not connected to your rules. Not connected to your law. Be connected to me. I am the true and perfect vine. Through me, the life of God flows. Guys, you see how offensive this would be? You see how confused they probably were when they had been told one thing their whole entire life? And then Jesus shows up on the scene and completely turns their thought process upside down. And it was Paul who echoed this in the book of Romans. Remember? He said, Israel has all the privileges. They have the form, but they have no life. They don't know God. They aren't connected to the vine. Guys, this was the Jew of all Jews, Paul, saying that Israel had all the privileges. They had the form, but they had no life. They didn't know God. They weren't connected to the vine. Guys, Paul was saying Jesus is the true vine. And then we look to the book of Hebrews, which states Jesus is the true tabernacle. Jesus is the true temple. It is through him that the life of God flows. Guys, it's so important that we understand that the blessing isn't on Israel. It was Paul who said, not all Israel is Israel. It is Jesus who is the true vine, just as he is the true light and the bread, and all the other metaphors he claimed to use, or he used to claim his divinity. The bottom line is this: anybody who's going to know the life of God has to connect with Jesus. It has to connect to him genuinely, as the I am. The blessing has nothing to do with race. The blessing has nothing to do with a connection to any heritage. It has everything to do with being connected to Jesus, the true vine, period, done, end of story.